So it is with great excitement that the Asian Art Museum is able to host tonight's screening program with Herb Tam, the curator and director of exhibitions at the Museum of Chinese in America in New York City, who will be in conversation with our special guest, Fang Lu, one of the artists featured in 28 Chinese. Fang Lu lives and works in Beijing. She received her Bachelor of Fine Arts from the Graphic Design Department of the School of Visual Arts in New York, and her Master's of Fine Arts from the New Genres Department at the San Francisco Arts Institute. Her work has been featured in solo exhibitions from Boers Il Gallery, Pekin Fine Arts, Aero Factory, Space Station, Borges, Libreria Institute of Contemporary Art, and also in many group exhibitions. She is a co-founder of the Video Bureau, an independent video archive resource in Beijing and Guangzhou. And tonight, the format of the program is going to begin with two excerpts of Fang Lu's work, one from a 2014 video work called No World. And we also have the unique privilege of previewing an excerpt from a new project called Sea of Silence, which she began during her residency at Artport in Tel Aviv, Israel, this past spring. So after the screening, Fang Lu and Herb Tam will take the stage for the conversation, and we'll follow that from the Q&A. So thank you very much for coming, and enjoy.
Thanks for coming. My name's Herb. This is Lu. So before we get into talking about the two pieces we just saw, I wanted to ask you something that I ask all artists when I meet them for the first time, although I know you, which is what got you into art making in the first place? How did you begin making art, and you know, sort of how did that start?
I think the beginning for me, how I started to being an artist, is kind of a boring one, because it's more something in my family that my family, it's a painter's family. So my dad is a Chinese painter, and so I grew up in this environment that everyone does Chinese painting, but for me it wasn't something that I was really excited about. It was just something always around me. But until I went, so that's why I wanted to study design when I just left China. I think it was this feeling of facing this white piece of paper or this white canvas. It was really frightening for me at the time. And so I've also felt that I wasn't really capable technically. So until I went to US, I got to see some exhibitions that was specifically with video works, and that was I think the first time I realized that there are other forms of art that is actually called art, and you don't have to make any marks on the canvas.
Yeah, I kind of want to talk about that, but we have other things to cover. So the other thing I want to ask you is, coming to America, what drew you here, and what were the reasons why you wanted to come here in the first place?
I just really want to leave home.
Home
as family. I felt it was something that I have to do, so I applied for school, and America was something I could find out really easily on internet at the time, 2001. And so I ended up being here actually without too much expectation.
So let's talk about the two pieces we saw, starting with No World. And that was an excerpt of a slightly longer piece, no dialogue, very action-oriented in a blank space, sort of warehouse studio type space. Can you talk about what made you want to create this piece with this kind of vocabulary that you use, and sort of what the process was like in creating this piece?
So for me, the work is about this group of young people, their daily activity living in this house. And for me, it's a fictional piece, but at the same time, all the resource was drawn from the news that we perceive daily. And so I want to create this group of people that they're like every one of us that living in at this moment, and they receive this kind of image that from different part of the world that like we see on the news, and so they become a very intuitively to start self-training. And this kind of self-training also became a game for them as a daily routine. So that was the initiative for the work. So the work starts from the morning and ends in the evening.
And how much direction did you give these actors? Or did you let them loose in the space and just try to create, a sort of naturally existing condition for them to respond to, and then you film them? Like, how much direction was there in scripting?
There's a list of tasks. I think like many of my other works, there are always lists of things to do, but there's not really a storyboard. So the filming process was really about how to realize this kind of moment and also recreate some of the photograph actually, and the photograph, some of them also reappear in the video, and that was in kind of a journalistic kind of style.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the, I guess, for lack of a better word, aesthetics of protest, because, in the history of revolutionary protest and activism, political movements, you see a lot of very intentional strategies of how images are produced. You go back to the civil rights, and some of those images, famous images of people being hosed down, were very intentional on the part of the protesters to kind of withstand, the use of force so that people could take pictures of them. For you, like because a lot of these actions on the part of the actors are very much based on, these gestures and actions of protests. What is the piece's relationship to the politics of the current day, if any?
Well, for me, I think the work is not directly pointing to any particular event, but of course it's with my intention is to really make this group of action used in a really beautiful way. And for me, they stand for a kind of truth. And also, I think for the contemporary society, the role of our camera is really changing. I think in the classical function of a camera, we always use it to memorize a moment that we want to keep forever. But by doing this project and also researching a lot of material, I see that the role of camera is really it's really a tool for creating a moment, and the boundary of staging and documentary, it's really not so clear, and so that's also an intention that the style of image it's in what you see in the video.
And how would you see that piece's relationship, or just your work in general? What traditions are it a part of, or is your work a part of? Are we talking like narrative filmmaking, sort of documentary essays, video art in general? Where does it fall? And by the way, Lou and I met before this. We exchanged all kinds of emails, like, I'm going to ask you all these questions, be prepared. And this is now off script, so, but I'm sure it's going to be an amazing answer.
So I know the two videos looks very different. Also, maybe some of my other works that they look totally different. But for me, that they both come out from my desire to create a kind of situation where really heightens one's existence, and this kind of existence reviews one's relationship to the rest of the world, and I think that's very important for me in this kind of work making. And also, I once talked about this idea about situated reality. And I think the images that you see and also the performance in this work, I'm very aware that they are artificial, and this kind of images and this kind of reality was created, but it really it heightens one's existence, and so I think that's what ties in my rest of the work.
Like a more intense versions of what they're referring to?
I think that this kind of moment, that it exists in our everyday life, but most of the time that we try to dismiss them because they are out of the ordinary structure, and we would prefer to go on our normal daily life. But I think every once in a while we get struck by this kind of sudden realization of truth. I do call it the truth.
I want to bring in China a little bit, because this is going to be our only chance to bring in China. And the show that you're in, the show 28 Chinese, that's the framing, right, is new Chinese art. I was just there. I was like traveling through Guangzhou and went to Hunan, and drove a lot of places, and everywhere you went, it seemed like there was like new construction happening, and new construction that was like abandoned, half built. And so the spaces, like the space of No World, it reminded me of a space like that in a way, in that it was like sort of massive and blank, nothing really happening. And it's sort of, when I saw those, it kind of prompted a lot of thinking about what could go on there, you know, imagining like new and different uses for those spaces. Was any part of that project have any relationship to, you know, China as it is now, especially with regards to urbanization, and, you know, all the changes that we assume are happening there? If no is the answer, that's like
okay.
Totally
Maybe
fine.
it's not really specific to China, but for me, where this kind of action take place are really important. The space, it's really important because this confinement, it's separate from the outside, from what we would see every day, what we like. It's separate from our normal life, and so the No World video was taken place. Actually, it's an interesting place. It's a abandoned museum in Beijing. That this area in Beijing called Songzhuang has a lot of artist studios, and the land there were really cheap because they were sold by the farmers to artists. And so some of the artists actually bought a big piece of land to build museums, but they didn't really have plan to either fund this kind of space or have any programs at all. So maybe after a year or so, they become abandoned site, and some of them they would try to rent it out to make some money or change it to a restaurant. So the video you saw was taken place in one of this kind of abandoned museum.
Great. So let's move on to Sea of Silence, the second piece we saw, and it's structurally pretty different. There's dialogue. The dialogue is, you know, a heavy feature of the piece and happens outside in a landscape. Can you talk about how you got from No World to this piece and kind of what you see are the connections and departure points?
So, like I said, I think I'm always thinking about one's relationship to the rest, to the others, and so I was very interested by this idea about by Martin Buber. This is actually a Jewish philosopher that he defines the attitudes of ones to the world with two different categories. One is with I, you, and the other type is with I, it. And when once it's in the mode of I, you, everything is in relationship. And when it's I, it, and this it could be a person, could be an object, could be anything. And that refers to an attitude of everything is in the past. Everything became an object. And so, so that's also this idea of situated reality was trying to create this kind of moment and space that one could respond to things in a relational kind of way. And when we talk about love, the reason that I'm interested to carry my work into the area, into such cliche topic, because love is it's an idea that someone in their mind, that who they are in relationship to the other person. And also, I think at the contemporary society that we lose the ability to talk about love, and we stop generating any knowledge from this kind of experience, because this kind of experience was very wasteful. It's very consuming, and it's not pragmatic, and it go against with our current society. So that's how I come into the Sea of Silence.
That's interesting that love is a subject for you. I mean, contemporary art, you rarely see love being the subject, you know, pop music, Hollywood films, sure, you see that. But contemporary art, it's very rare to see love treated in this way, and yet it's not, seems like it's not the only thing at work with this piece.
I think with the piece, I'm not so interested to define what love is or what it should be, because I don't think that's important at all. But it's about how these performers, this woman, when they experience love, that in a way it's not about love as a subject, but this experience as a subject. So what you see in the video, all the stories are really just a small event. It's not an epic. It's not about they have done. You know, it's not what you see in the movie that they have done great with their partner or did a tragic thing. But they are really small moments. But they identified that as what they call love.
And I guess talk about the collaboration with these actors. First of all, where was this shot, the landscape, and how did you work with the actors in terms of the dialogue and the writing?
So it was in Israel. The whole project was made there, and the people I met was through a casting call, and it is a difficult process to find performers, because when you put out a call like that to invite people to come to talk about their love story, most people would not recognize that it's something that they want to talk about. It's not like you're recruiting someone with a special skill, and most people don't want to talk about experience like that. But this are the women that I did find through the casting call, and so with them, with each of them, I talk with them to come up with the script. And the script was very much precisely based on their language. But everything you have heard was, it comes out from a text, even though it looks very improvised. But the story was also partly fictional, partly based on their personal life. And in the end of the story, they all moved to the desert as a new way of living. So the video, it's also about one's decision of where they should live, how they should live.
When I was watching it, I was thinking about how, you know, memory and fantasy, reality, all kind of mix when these kind of moments of trauma happen, and you sort of recycle these over and over again, and they become ever more intermingled until it's like a story that you somehow are satisfied with, or that it becomes, you know, this therapeutic narrative, I guess. But it just made me think when I was watching this again. When you watch your work over and over again, does it sort of change over time? You told me you're still working on Sea of Silence. Like, when does it stop? I mean, when do you just say, all right, it's done? And
well, with the piece, it's kind of the sound was something technically challenging because the wind was really dramatic, and so it took a long time to just work on the sound and also the editing itself. But I think for me, right now when I see it, I still can't see it as just a simple piece of moving image because I just finished the work last month, and so for me they are still people that are present for me, that they are, when they talk, I still feel like they're, you know, they're standing next to me.
maybe we should open it up to questions from all of you. Let's go back there first.
So I have a question in regards to the sound. So did you have a sound boom?
Yes.
And were you the camera person?
I'm not. There are other camera people.
And so you choreographed how it was filmed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good questions. There's a question right here.
Hi. So I hear about you talk about the moment in your image. Just remind me to think about another Chinese artist, Wang Jianwei. He talked about actually the reality is different to the truth. So I see so many moments that just thinking about some of his pieces before. So I think the question is, so right now you go between American and China. Can you tell something? Do you think you change a little bit after you back to China in the art practice?
You mean did I change after I go back to China from US?
Yeah. Do you think
about
you change the place? And do you think after you go back to China, do you think in your logic or your work, do you think change a little bit?
It's hard to say that if my way of thinking changed, but of course, my surrounding, affect what I do in my work, that you see it very clearly. I think that what I perceive does affect what I do in my work. I remember the first video when I just went back to China from US was called News Reenactment, that I created a video based on, because when I was in US, I always like to watch the news about China, but not on the big events, but the small. There's a column in any kind of news website. I forgot what it's called, but they report on like the smallest things, like the things that doesn't get onto international news, like the silly things people would do, like in village, but they kind of breaking the rules in like a very subtle way, or sometimes just even in a humorous way. So the first video I did when I went back was created several of the news, but back on the street, but it was filmed in a way that you know that it was filmed, it was performed. And so one of the news story was a couple, a boy and a girl, so they were standing in front of a mall, and so somehow that they were in an argument. It doesn't really explain what they were arguing, but the news was that this boy was kneeling in front of this girl, and the girl was slapping the boy for hours, and that was on the news. So, so I created one of this. So there were several pieces that in similar kind of quality.
Let's go here first, and then we'll. Where in Israel did you film?
In south of Israel, in not the very south, but the whole Israel. The reason I film on the desert is because it's. I think for anyone outside of Israel, desert has this psychological effect that it's a rural, it's an empty place, it's a place of death, it's dry, there's nothing grows on there. But for people in Israel, it also has this very specific historical ideas, and also 2/3 of Israel are desert. And so I think it's a very interesting location for anyone.
Abby? I know people out here.
Well, there is a advantage to know the speakers. Quick question to Fang Lu. 2009, I remember we featured a piece of yours, the dubbed music video, which actually has a lot of sense of humor, irony kind of in the work. Maybe I'm wrong, but your recent videos seems more subtle, almost a little bit heavier. But that's a very superficial observation, and I'd just like to know from you, in the past 7 to 8 years, also the kind of time you moved back to China, how much you think your artistic direction has changed and what has not changed?
Which music video? Was it the one called Straight Out of Hong Kong?
Yes.
Okay.
That sounds awesome. Straight out of Hong Kong?
So Straight Out of Hong Kong, it was, maybe you didn't see it. So it was a video, at the time I worked with two musicians, very different musicians. One was a woman rapper called Kelda, and she was from Oakland.
Oh yeah, I did see that. It's great. Okay. I saw it on YouTube or something. It's great.
Okay. And then the other group was called Sei Bak Guai. I wish they are here. And they are, the main singer, Alex, was from Hong Kong, but living in US, and he doesn't really speak Chinese, but all his song was in really awkward Cantonese. And so with the video, I have two of the band, two of the group perform in the 99-cent store and have Kelda to lip sing Sei Bak Guai's song. Yeah, I don't know how to respond that my current work is less funny. I do see that as a very serious attempt, though, with Straight Out of Hong Kong.
No, I definitely love that piece. Just curious about the change, that's all. And the guy sitting next to you is a great rapper himself, so.
I've rapped a few times. Karaoke, you know, not my own lyrics. Oh, sorry. Next question. This is not about me. Yeah.
Hello. I was just wondering, the women who were acting in the video, if you knew them and the story is real, or if you get inspired by their lives, or if you made the story and then they acted, or because Israel is a really strong place. I had a chance to meet a person from Israel, and her artworks is always very strong, so I just wonder.
You mean if I know them before this project?
Yeah, or during the project, or who made the story they're saying, if it's real,
if it's real. Yes, most of the story that you heard were real, except that they were in the script, that some of the time and happening were changed. But it was mostly based on their personal story, but written in a way that was fit into the video. And also that created an extra part that they find desert as their new habitat. And that was something beyond their personal story.
And how did you meet them, or did you?
Through doing this video, I put out a casting call online, and also through the the place that I was doing the project, who helped me to produce the project.
What do your parents think about what you're doing now?
I don't really talk too much about my work with my parents, although my aunt is here, so I should not say too much. No, I think my parents supported emotionally as I'm the daughter, but I don't really expect them to really agree everything that I'm doing.
Are they artists also?
Yes, they are. My father is a Chinese painter.
Maybe one more? Anything? We can do two more, yeah.
Who's collecting these? You have people collecting these, institutions or individuals?
Yes, from the Rebel show right now happening in the museum here was the work showing in the exhibition was collected by the Rebel family, and that's how this project is taken place. And so from, different people or places who are interested in the work.
The second one that was taking place in Israel, how much of your work would you say is specifically coming from the fact that you're born in China? If I had not seen you tonight, I would not have recognized that piece as, oh, that it was created by a Chinese woman. How much of your work is outside the parameter of where you were born?
I think it really depends on where I live at that moment when I was creating the work. And I think it was all about me making connection to where I'm living. So it's really hard to say my work referenced China in a historical way or a culture. I mean, except that I'm Chinese, I would not say my work represents China.
So was there a scene for that piece before you went to China, or did the project completely, was it born in China?
You mean Israel? Or, oh. Yes, before I went to Israel, I have this idea to do projects about love story, but based on individual talking about the topic as someone speaking about the love experience as a form of action. But all the content would really taken place after I arrived Israel, because after I meet these people.
All right, maybe that's a good place to leave it, right? And thanks for sticking with us tonight and seeing Lu's work and talking with us. And hopefully you'll come back for An Xiao Mina's talk as well. She's great. So please come back for that. Thank you.
Thank you.